Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Chuck Graham Show. I found something very curious, and I've already touched base on Hunter Bidden, but there's a flood of new evidence that's coming out. And this Bobulinski guy, Tony Bobulinski, that did a Tucker Carlson interview. But here's what I found strange. I typed in Bobulinski. Now, this should be the top story. This has to do with Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. Joe's running for president. Hunter's running for crack. Kill myself sometimes. But it should be a top story. But type in Google Bobulinski. Some baseball player from the 50s shows up. Nothing. It's like radio silence with these people. So why? Why is that? Well, because they're burying the story. The same thing that they had that hearing on yesterday on Section 230, and they're burying the story. Now, I was watching Jim Jordan talk about he was going to introduce a bill, and I think he already did, and I forgot what the name of it was, and I haven't looked it up, but I read it. It still does nothing to protect constitutionally protected speech. Now, I know that Google and Facebook are private entities, and the Constitution protects the citizens from the government. But here's the problem with that: is these platforms are virtual town squares. Now, the Supreme Court's already ruled on this when I think it was the state of New Hampshire, tried to tell a convicted sex offender that he couldn't use Facebook. And they ruled that yes, he could, and the government couldn't prohibit him from doing it because it was a virtual public square. But they did go on to say, the private companies can stop him from using it if they choose to. But the fact is this: Section 230 needs to be amended, and all it would have to say is this: you are prohibited from removing constitutionally protected speech as identified by the United States Supreme Court, or you lose your immunity if you remove the content. You can remove it. We're not telling you businesses that you can't remove it. We're telling you that if you do, you lose your immunity. I mean, it's not like they don't do this shit all the time anyway. They do it with other constitutionally protected. We're not saying that you don't have the right to bear arms. We're saying that you don't have the right to bear arms in public without a permit. Huh? That don't make no sense. Not to get on the Second Amendment, but the fact is, if you have the right to keep and bear arms, then that's your right to keep and bear arms. Why do I need permission from the fucking state that tell me that I have the right to keep and bear arms? Oh, well, we're not telling you that. We're just saying if you're going to carry it on your person, you got to have a permit. They do this shit all the time. So why not do it to these social media platforms? If you want to remain you want to remain a platform that you keep your immunity, then you don't remove any content that is considered constitutionally protected. And hate speech is free speech. Now, we can get into fighting words and all that kind of shit later. But the fact of the matter is, I said it last video, that's the speech you want to protect. But like I said, they do it all the time. But what they're doing now with Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and all this trove of evidence, I digress because I'm rambling. All right, so let's get back to the point. The point being is they're censoring and they're shadow banning and they're wiping the story. If you type in Bobulinski's name, Tony Bobulinski, not Tony, but just Bobulinski, it should come up on the first 3 search terms within that first page. But it doesn't. They've buried it. And that's the whole reason that they were in front of that committee. I mean, I just watched a video a while ago. I mean, Joe Biden can't even string 2 sentences together. If he wins this election, it's because social media has buried the damn story. I mean, he just got on TV and he was talking about, I am Joe Biden's husband. What? Look at the clip. I'll show it to you. Yeah, I didn't make that up. Idiot. Can't string 2 sentences together. And got that crooked ass smile. Well, all I can say is this. If he wins the election, it's because the social media platforms have held his hand all the way through. And Kamala Harris, shit. I don't get it. I mean, she's going to be the next president, folks. Let's make no mistake. She's going to be the next president. They're just propping his old ass up just so they can get him across the finish line. If he wins, she will be the one running the country. I mean, they want to get rid of fracking. They want to get rid of carbon. They want to get rid of carbon emissions and CO2 and all that. They have no idea the science on this. You have dissenting opinions on climate change. And here's the thing, not to get off in the weeds with climate change, but I guess I should. Climate change happens about every 14,000 years. Any first-year science major knows this, right? Okay? The world heats up as the polar ice caps freeze because the seas recede. As they recede, and this is super, super fucking slow, right? It's almost, you don't notice it. So it recedes, the seas recede, less water surface on the planet. You follow me? The world heats up. As the world heats back up, it starts melting the polar ice caps, which causes the seas to come back and to rise. What the hell am I thinking? Come back. It causes the seas to rise. And as it rises, it cools again. It's just simple life. That's what it is. And we know this because there is a petrified forest off the coast of Oregon that has fresh water in the cypress. That's how we know that this is actually true. It's not necessarily a theory anymore. We know this happened. But according to AOC, we're going to all be dead in 17 years. Well, that shit was predicted in the 80s too by Al Gore. Miami would be underwater. El Nino, if we don't do something about climate change, shit, the sky's falling. Well, it hadn't failed, and we're still here. I'm not saying that climate change is not real. It is. There's just not shit we can do about it. And the little bit of carbon emissions that we put into the atmosphere actually strengthens our ozone layer. And most of it is absorbed by the damn plants that are growing. But nobody talks about that. I mean, you cover all this stuff in science class. So the fact of the matter is, but nobody wants to hear that because that's not the cool thing to do. Well, I was watching a show the other day and they were talking about it actually takes more carbon emissions. Now think about this now. More carbon emissions to produce the energy to run your fucking Tesla electric car than the gas engines produce with a tank of gas. So when you think you're being, oh, I'm being green, man, I'm protecting the planet, man. Come on, man. You're really not. That's like Leonardo DiCaprio planting a fucking tree so he can fly in his private jet. Uh-huh. Yeah, and that's actually true. Look it up. These famous people, rich people, whatever, they'll have their private jets and they feel triggered, so they want to go and get in their private jet, and they need to go places, so they go and they plant a tree that offsets the carbon emissions that the jet is producing, which is really not much. Bet you didn't know this either. Diesels, even though you see all that black smoke, they actually run cleaner than gas engines. So does jets. So does all that. They burn pretty clean. Side note. So, where are we at in this country? Well, we're almost broke. We're to, 22, $23 trillion in debt. How in the hell are we ever going to get that taken care of? And Trump is struggling like hell to hold on, because if Biden and them get in office, folks, game over. I mean, they're bought and paid for. Hunter will have all the crack he can smoke, and Joe will have all the whatever, 10% of shit. Can you imagine? Now think about this for a second. And I'm not a big conspiracy guy, you know. I'm not going to sit here like Alex Jones and say, they put something in the water in the Ohio River Valley that turned the frogs gay. Actually, what he was talking about, and I'll touch base on that. I know he said that, and it wasn't true, but he clarified it later. They did, I think it was, I don't know if it was DuPont, if it was the government or what, they were allowing it to happen, but you just watch the Devil We Know, the documentary on that, and you probably would never buy anything DuPont has to sell anyway. So, some chemical that got in the water, and if you don't know anything about frogs, when the temperature of the water that they're in as tadpoles is what determines their gender. And what happened is the chemicals in that water actually caused them to swap genders. No more strange than a lizard growing his tail back, I guess. But that actually happened. So you can look it up. It didn't necessarily turn them gay. It turned them a different gender. But it doesn't surprise me if the temperature of the water actually determines their gender in the first place. Anyway, moving on from the frogs. I don't know. I watch the news every day, and sometimes I just want to turn it off. It's just crazy. But anyway, I'm gonna leave it with that. So if you have any comments, well, leave them below. And until I see you guys on the next video, bye-bye.